Ladies and gentlemen, Black Ops 6 Zombies is officially here, and I just got done playing my first couple games of Terminus and Liberty Falls, so I'm going to give you a first impressions review of my first few hours of playing BO6 Zombies, and just go through the positives, the negatives, and just overall my honest thoughts on it. First, I just want to say a huge disclaimer. Obviously, this is not a full review of the entire game because I obviously have not experienced everything in the game yet. I've only played a few hours of it. A lot of the stuff is not even available to us yet. We have no Easter eggs or side Easter eggs available, except for a couple of minor things like the Easter egg songs, but most Easter eggs are locked. We can't do the main quest, we can't do none of that right now. And even some of the other systems in the game, I haven't been able to experiment with that much because, again, I've only played a couple hours. I haven't done anything with the augments, for example. You can't even unlock those until level 11, so therefore I haven't really done anything with the augments, and there's a couple other weapons I haven't used. I haven't used the wonder weapons yet, so there's a lot of things I can't really comment on, but that's why this is just a first impressions review, just the first things I thought of the first couple times I played this game. Starting off with the positives, the game feels really good, and I'm not really surprised by this. I feel like most zombies modes feel pretty good, but just generally speaking, killing zombies, the movement, all of it feels good. Just like Black Ops 6 multiplayer, I think everything feels clean. It's satisfying to kill zombies. Nothing really feels clunky, at least not so far, so that's definitely a positive, a huge positive. I do think Modern Warfare Zombies felt clunky in some areas, at least in my experience, and I'm thankful that I don't really have that feeling while playing BO6 Zombies. A big improvement compared to Cold War Zombies here is the early round progression actually feels like it exists. A big issue a lot of players, including myself, had with Cold War is that there really wasn't a lot of incentives to like actually hit the box or get wall buys, but I feel like the way Black Ops 6 is built, you actually have incentives to do those things, mainly because low rarity weapons in this game are extremely weak, even weaker than they were in Cold War. In Cold War, your weapons that were low rarity could still do decent damage, even up to like round 10, like usually they were killing just fine, but in Black Ops 6 Zombies, your weapons fall off fast. So if you're not constantly upgrading the rarity, you're not going to be doing a lot of damage. And of course, upgrading rarity costs salvage, and salvage is not that easy to come by, at least not in the early rounds. So you actually have a decent incentive to hit the mystery box, get some wall weapons. Now the only issue here is that the mystery box luck on early rounds is very bad, so you will likely be getting a lot of green rarity weapons out of the mystery box in the early rounds if you decide to hit it. But there is a slim chance there of getting a high rarity weapon, and obviously that is the exciting part of zombies, is getting those really lucky moments where you get a really good weapon early on, and you're like, oh my god, this is now a really solid run because I have a really good weapon really early. But believe me, this is definitely a good thing because it makes it so the loadout system isn't as bad, because I don't feel the need to keep my loadout weapon. At least in my first few times playing, I did not even bother keeping my loadout weapon because I didn't feel like going through the motions of upgrading the rarity on it again and again and again. I just felt like I could just hit the box and it'd be a lot easier. Now this next thing might seem like a weird positive, but I really like the dedicated melee weapons. They were actually a really cool system. At first I didn't think it would be that important. I was like, whatever. But when I found out you can actually pack-a-punch these things, I just randomly went up to the pack-a-punch with a baseball bat that I had, and I said, let me see if I can pack-a-punch this dedicated melee weapon. I did not expect it whatsoever, but yes, you can actually pack-a-punch your dedicated melee weapon. So for those of you who don't know what the dedicated melee weapon is, you can actually spawn in with a melee weapon of choice. Now, you aren't going to have this melee weapon as your like main melee. When you have your gun out, you're just going to use the butt of the gun, just like in Modern Warfare Zombies, but if you hold the melee button, you will then pull out the melee weapon that you have, and you can actually use that. And you actually can find the melee weapons in the maps itself too. So if you don't have a really cool melee weapon to start with, you can actually just find it somewhere on the map. For example, the first time I played, I had the knife as my dedicated melee weapon, but I found the baseball bat and I decided to use that. And it was actually doing some decent damage. Even without pack-a-punch, it can kill, I think, up to around 10. So definitely a cool system, although it's not really that big of a deal. I thought it was really exciting the first time I found out I can do that. I'm also a big fan of how the challenge trials work in this game compared to Cold War. And not necessarily the fact that I think it's a better system than Cold War. I'm just glad they decided to do something different. I was really worried it was going to be the exact same challenge trial system, but they actually decided to change it up. So the way it works in this game is that there's a purple light in the sky, and I believe it's the exact same on Liberty Falls as it is on Terminus. There's a purple light in the sky, and when you go to this purple light, there's going to be a challenge trial machine, and when you hold X on the machine, it will give you a challenge associated with the area of where that trial machine is. Now, after you finish this challenge, it will go to a different area of the map, and it'll just keep doing this. Now, I'm not sure if this goes on forever, if you can just keep doing it and it'll just cycle around, but I think it's really cool because it allows you to do something specific with that area. For example, on Terminus, there was a challenge where you have to be on that platform with the Pack-a-Punch machine and kill zombies while it's moving, and I thought that was a really cool challenge, and it will give you a tiered reward depending on how good you actually did in that challenge. Now, unfortunately, the rewards kind of suck. I mean, the first couple times I did it, the rewards they weren't that great, unfortunately. I think they definitely need to improve those a bit and maybe give us like perk drops and stuff like that. I think there might be a chance you can get a perk drop. I just personally didn't get that in my game, but I think they got to improve what you're getting out of these challenges, because otherwise I don't think anybody's going to actually bother doing them. At least in Cold War, you can get some really solid rewards. So hopefully they're going to improve those, or maybe I just got really unlucky the first few times I did it, but I guess I'll just have to wait and see there. I just think they definitely need to improve those rewards a bit. I also really like the locker system. You can actually find a locker key on both Terminus and Liberty Falls. I haven't found the actual armory on Liberty Falls just yet, but on Terminus you go up to the armory and you can actually go inside of it and use the key on any of these like lockers, and you just basically get some loot out of it. And sometimes the loot's actually decent. It's not amazing loot, but it's definitely decent, and I think this is a pretty cool feature, just a random feature on the map that is interesting. And one of the biggest positives I can give is that at least so far it definitely feels harder than Cold War. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to hold up over time, because of course I don't have the augments yet. Once I get to actually utilize the augments, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of OP ones there that we get to use, that might change things up a bit. Also, the wonder weapons, once I get a hold of those, maybe that'll make the mode a lot easier. But at least in my experience, there was some moments where the game felt a bit challenging, like I was getting cornered a lot and it was hard to break out of it unless you had your field upgrade available. So there was actually some good moments like that. I felt like there was actually some moments where I ran out of ammo and I had to actually find an ammo crate, and sometimes they weren't readily available, or maybe the zombies didn't drop ammo in a while, so I actually had to like do something to, get out of that situation. And I felt there was a decent amount of moments like that within my first couple times of playing. So that's definitely a positive for sure. Another huge positive is the character quotes. I'm very happy, of course, that we have a dedicated crew. Finally, we haven't had one since Black Ops 4, and it's really cool to see in this mode. I played as Gray and Weaver in my first two games, and they had some really funny quotes, some really, decent story-heavy quotes that actually add a lot to the characters. There's also a lot of radios in the map. I already came across like 5 different radios on Terminus, and I didn't really get a good listen of them, but there's definitely a lot of lore and story importance going on with these maps. I'm really excited to get into the Easter eggs and see what those are like, see what the cutscenes are going to be. But so far, all of that is a huge positive. I'm definitely very happy that the maps finally have a decent amount of personality to them. At least Terminus does, which, getting into more map-specific positives, Terminus is really cool. I think the atmosphere of it is amazing. I think there's a lot of cool just things to interact with on the map, a lot of interesting looking things, like the detail is all there. It's a very detailed map, and I love this, the monster in the ocean. That's really cool. I love the fact that you can take a boat around the map. It's a very big map. It's really, really, really big. They were not kidding when they said it was the biggest map ever, because there's definitely a lot to explore, and that's obviously very exciting. I also like the Pack-a-Punch quest on it. It's very simple. You just go around the map and turn on 3 generators, but I kind of liked it though. Like, there was genuinely a difficult thing to do in the early rounds. Like, I even failed one of them once, which I'm not sure if everyone else did that as well, but one of them, I literally couldn't keep the zombies away from it, so I failed. And I like that there's an actual challenge to it there. Of course, you have to have a decent weapon to actually be able to kill the zombies and get them away from the generators. So really enjoy that setup process that Terminus has. And then when you actually unlock the Pack-a-Punch, you have to like go underwater, hold X on it, and it brings the Pack-a-Punch machine out from under the water. It's a really cool quest, very easy to do. They tell you exactly how to do it. Unfortunately, I kind of wish they didn't tell you exactly how to do it, but I get why they do that, because they want to make sure casuals can at least get Pack-a-Punch unlocked without any problems. But overall, did like that quest at least a little bit. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of map-specific positives to say about Liberty Falls just yet, but I will say, getting to play it with a more customized HUD, it definitely looks a lot better than it did within the COD Next gameplay. Like, there is a clear, distinct difference in how the map looks, and I'm definitely happy that it's a lot better looking than it did before. And overall, I'm just really glad that we have a customizable HUD, and I do think there are some decent HUD presets available, and I'm glad I can turn off the score feed and the medals and all that. And if you can see in the gameplay here, like it looks clean. It looks more like classic zombies in a lot of ways. But unfortunately, the HUD stuff is not perfect, which is going to bring us into the negatives. The first thing I want to talk about here is there are not enough specific HUD options, which might sound so nitpicky, but let me explain what I mean, because there are definitely some problems here that hopefully they can fix. I think these are things that they can easily do and shouldn't be a problem, especially because I believe Modern Warfare 3 already had some of these as options. So my first big thing here is, why can't I make a specific HUD for zombies that stays only for zombies? That should be like a no-brainer, but for some reason, whenever you make changes to the zombies HUD, it also makes the changes to the multiplayer HUD. Now, for zombies only players, that's obviously not going to be a problem whatsoever, but for someone like myself who frequently goes between zombies and multiplayer, it's going to be really frustrating to have to change the HUD every single time I switch between each mode. And it's not like it's just one change. I have to go through the different HUD sliders and adjust them every single time I go between each mode. And that's going to be so frustrating. So they really need to add the ability to just like make a set preset HUD for zombies that stays there for zombies and does not change, because again, I do not want to have to adjust my HUD stuff every single time I go between each mode. I think that would just be so frustrating. And also specifically for zombies, there are a couple of things with the HUD that I still would like to adjust at least a little bit. Again, I'm glad we have these presets, but there are some things on the classic HUD here that I would like to change a bit. For example, I'm not a big fan of the placement of the round counter being under the character icon and all that other stuff. It looks a little funky, so I would rather just put the round counter on the top left hand side of the screen and then keep that character icon thing on the bottom left. That's how I want to keep it for good, but there is currently no option in the presets to do exactly that. Now you could do that, but put the round counter on the right hand side. But again, like I want to get more specific with my HUD options because I want to really be able to customize it in any way I want. And that's kind of how they presented it as being, but I don't think we can get as specific as I would personally like. Hopefully those options will come in the future, but currently that's one big criticism I have. Also, the perk icons, they're kind of oddly placed with this classic HUD. Like, why are they kind of just like in that like middle left side of the screen? Like, why not just put it all the way to the left and next to the round counter? I feel like that would make a lot more sense, kind of like how it was in Black Ops 3, and perhaps it would just make the HUD look a lot cleaner as is. I don't know, I just don't like the fact that it's so like weirdly centered. I don't know, it's just odd to me. But this is the HUD I've been rocking with for my first 2 times playing. There are a lot of other HUD presets. If you want to see some of them, I'll show them on screen. Most of them I'm not a big fan of, but like I said, the classic one is the one I've been rocking. There is one that is like exactly like Cold War, and there's a couple other ones as well. I really think one of the main things I want as well is an option to have the score feed somewhere else on the screen, because I don't like the score feed being in the dead center, but I kind of want it to be where it was back in classic zombies, where whenever you got points, you would just see like a plus 10 points, plus 100, whatever, next to your points itself. That's where I want to see this score feed. Is there any way that they could possibly implement a HUD feature where they can make it look more like classic zombies, where the score pops up over there? That would be nice, because like I said, I've been turning off the score feed. I don't have the score feed on in any of my gameplay, and I think it looks a lot better like that, but I still would like the score feed on the screen somewhere, just not in the dead center of the screen like it is, and that's the only other option you could do it for it. So you can't get like really customized with the HUD. You can't go crazy with it, like doing anything you want, at least not currently, but I would like some options like that, just because I think there's still some things that I would personally like to change. And another big thing as well is the medals and notifications are put in the exact same category, and I'm not quite sure why they decided to do that, because I don't want medals, but I do want notifications. So notifications are stuff like when you level up and you have a new level that pops up on the screen, or you get camos completed, those probably would pop up with the notifications. But for some reason, they put them into the same category. So if you want medals turned off, you also have to turn off those other things as well. But this doesn't make any sense, because those other things aren't nearly as intrusive and annoying as medals, because medals pop up every 5 seconds. Like every time you kill a zombie, basically, you're gonna have a medal pop up on your screen. Whereas notifications like leveling up and getting camos, those are not going to pop up every couple seconds. Those pop up very infrequently. So those are definitely something that just should be able to stay on, while you can also turn off notifications. So basically just goes back to my original point. We need more HUD specific settings. Just get a little more specific with it, please. This next criticism is not something I expect them to change, but I want to mention it anyways because it was one of my biggest issues with my first couple times playing, and I knew even before the game came out it was probably going to be my biggest issue with the game, and that is the point system. I really don't like this new point system. I've made that very clear in the past, and I understand with the rarity system and the loadout system, they don't really feel like they have another choice with the point system, but I really feel like they have to make some sort of change because it is really not satisfying, especially in the later rounds, to kill hordes of zombies. One of the best parts of classic zombies is just lighting up a horde of zombies with your weapon and just seeing the points just shoot up. It's such a satisfying feeling, but obviously in the later rounds, especially if you're not using like a really powerful weapon, you're not killing the zombies that fast, you're not gonna see the points shoot up, and it doesn't have that same satisfying feel necessarily. And I just don't like the fact that I'm just getting so few points so much throughout the game. Like, points are frequently an issue, and I do like that for the early round because it takes longer to get what you need. That is totally fine, but when the later rounds, I start to get to a point where I'm like on round 30 and I only have a tier 1 pack-a-punched weapon and I have like no points. It's just really strange how I have no points in the later rounds, and that happened a lot in Cold War as well. And I just feel like there's got to be better ways to balance things here, and I don't know what changes they could make to the point system that would actually work with this rarity system and the loadouts, but there's got to be something just to give you a bit of extra points for shooting into hordes of zombies. Perhaps like maybe you can only get up to 50 points per zombie through bullet hits. Something like that. I'm not sure, but I really think there's got to be a way to get us extra points just through the point system that would reward using weaker guns in some way, shape, or form, because I really think it would just make those rounds a lot more fun, and even the early rounds, because I would be more incentivized to start with like the pistol, for example, because of course you have that option, but I'm just thinking to myself, what's the point? Because there's no classic point system, so why would I bother starting with the classic pistol? Now this next point, I want to make it very clear that this is likely to change after tomorrow when the Easter eggs are unlocked, but so far, especially Liberty Falls, it just feels so empty. Like, there's not really much to do on the map, not much to interact with. And I mean, compare this to the first time I played Zombies in Spaceland. Like, I was blown away with all the things you can do on the map, all the things you can interact with, and there was just so many little things. Even if it wasn't Easter egg related, there was just so many little things to mess around with, and I don't feel like there's as many in this game. There's obviously the usual stuff, like the stuff from the arsenal or the crafting bench, but all that stuff just doesn't have the same like personality and touch as like map unique things you can interact with. The only map unique things you can interact with here are obviously stuff like the traps, and I'm sure again when we get like the wonder weapons and stuff like that, those are going to be map specific. But I'm just looking around the maps, and especially Liberty Falls, there's really not much to do. And again, I'm expecting that to change with the side Easter eggs. Hopefully there's a side Easter egg where you can go bowling or something like that. Hopefully you can play some of the arcade games. I'm not exactly sure if that's actually going to be a thing, but I'm really hopeful that it will be as a side Easter egg. But even then, why not just have that be like a core thing you can just do on the map without having to do a side Easter egg? Like, I feel like bowling, there's this perfectly good bowling alley there. Why not just let us go up to the bowling machine, hold X for 500 points, and then just bowl? And if we get good, if we do good, we get special rewards or something. Like, that's such a no-brainer system, I feel like, but the fact that it's not there now worries me that it's going to turn into like a side Easter egg that's like a one and done thing that you can't just keep doing. But like I said, we really just have to wait and see on this. I just wanted to say that this is like a first impression thing. I was quickly feeling like there's really not much on Liberty Falls, and I know that's kind of intended. Now Terminus has a little bit more to do, I feel like, but even then I didn't really feel like there was a lot of things to interact with. A lot of it was just me being like overwhelmed with the BO6 features and the fact that the map is so huge and so expansive. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of things to mess with that are like generalized to the Black Ops 6 Zombies mechanics, but when it comes to map specific stuff, that is where I feel like I'm having an issue here. I don't feel like there's a lot of map specific things, but that's why I want to hold off, because I'm expecting the Easter egg stuff to be the very big map specific stuff. They said there's a lot of side Easter eggs on Terminus, so I'm definitely excited to try those out. Last thing I want to mention is the Liberty Falls color palette. Although I said before that Liberty Falls definitely looks better with the better HUD, I'd still think the map just doesn't look that appealing. It kind of looks like how Alpha Omega looks before you turn on the power, and I think it's pretty clear that Alpha Omega does not look very good before you turn on the power, but once you turn on the power, Alpha Omega suddenly looks really good. So I kind of wish that Liberty Falls would be the same, where it just looks like that from the start. I think it really does need just more colors, more of a saturation pop to it. Now I understand that a lot of people were asking for the map to have a more zombified feel, but I do think colors don't take away from the zombified feel. You can still have a map that feels a bit, dark and dreary while still having colors. Dead of the Night is the best example of that. Dead of the Night is a dark and dreary zombified map that also has a lot of colors. Even Terminus doesn't have necessarily a lot of colors, but the colors definitely pop on the map, even though it's, dark and dreary and definitely fits that zombie's atmosphere. So I definitely think Liberty Falls could still use some changes there. I'm not sure how easy or hard that would be for Treyarch, but I think it just definitely needs a bit of a switch up with the color palette. I'm not expecting that to change post-launch, but then again, I might as well add it as a criticism because it was something I was thinking while I was playing the map. All in all, I'm having a fun time playing Black Ops 6 Zombies, and I cannot wait to put in even more hours into the game, especially when the Easter eggs come out. Of course, I will be hunting the Easter eggs and doing all sorts of that stuff later on, so hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I will see you on my next one. Peace out.